There we go.
Okay. All right, we're recording. So welcome everybody to DrupalCamp St. Louis. There's still going to be a few more people filtering in, but this year we've had a lot more people come and register, so we're excited about that. We're going to have 2 sessions going on all day. It'll be a great day. Before anything else, though, I wanted to thank our sponsors. This year our sponsor list grew quite a bit, and really this camp would not be possible without them. A lot of you came from companies that are our sponsors, so thank you very much. Tell whoever could get that funding in place that that is greatly appreciated. This wouldn't happen without the sponsorship. And there's also a lot of St. Louis area companies on this list. Last year, most of the companies, there were a few, but most of the companies were external to St. Louis. Drupal's really growing in a big way in St. Louis, and I think that's part of it is due to all of you out here who are from these companies that are building up Drupal inside your company. So thank you very much. So there's a few notes. One thing that I forgot to stick on the slide, Wi-Fi, we're still working out a couple kinks, but you should be able to get on Slew Guest. If you can't get on Slew Guest, then I'm going to try to set up a secondary network that you could get on. But Slew Guest should work. If you can't connect, try not connecting and then connect again in like 10 minutes. It seems a little hit or miss today. We'll try to figure that out. Apparently, Slew upgraded their Wi-Fi last night. So, upgraded. Also, this. Yeah, blame that, Jeff. No. There's a couple schedules out in the main area, and it's also online. If you haven't logged in, you can log in and go to the schedule page and add all the sessions you want to see to your schedule. It's not like DrupalCon where there's hundreds of sessions, so it's not that complicated, but it's online and on those posters. There's a learning lounge that's open all day. It's right off the registration area. You can go in there if there's a session you're not really wanting to see, or if there's some time that you need to do a little work, or if you want to work with somebody on something, feel free to go in there. You can grab a coffee and sit down at one of those tables. There's power. And if you need to recharge things, there's lots of outlets in there. So that's open all day today and tomorrow. Lunch, when it comes time for lunch, we'll be in the main area by the elevator, so head on that way after the session is over. And tomorrow there will be sprints. Alina will be telling you a little bit more about that. And also, right after the keynote, after Alina is finished here, there will be a photo. So everybody's going to come up here and stand here, and then we'll have a picture taken of all of us for our meetup group and for posterity. So that'll be fun. And one final thing that we wanted to mention is a lot of you here probably have met Eric Brown. If you've ever come to any of the meetups in the past 3 or 4 years, 5 years, he's been to like every meetup for a really long time. And he was key in getting this Drupal camp started last year. For like 3 or 4 years, we were like, we should do a Drupal camp this year. We should do a Drupal camp. Finally, Eric Brown was kind of like, we're going to do a Drupal camp. And then we all kind of worked with him to do it last year. And we were just getting into the planning for this year's Drupal camp when we all learned at one of our meetings that he had died the night before. And that was, it was quite a blow. And any one of you that have met him know that he was extremely generous with his time. He was involved in the Drupal community and really was key to getting Drupal in St. Louis kind of kick-started through the meetup group that had kind of festered for a few years. He got it at a regular meeting place, and he made sure we always had a meeting. He got a lot of great speakers and topics and sponsors, so we'd all like to thank him for what he did and his family for the time that he gave us and remember him. So, and I think Alina might also mention like some of his contributions to our community in St. Louis. But without further ado, we have Alina from Chicago. She is a developer and a system administrator, very involved in the Drupal community. Pretty much like every Drupal event the past year that I've looked at that I was interested in going to, I saw that she was involved in something with it, which is cool. She is also a speaker and communications lead for DrupalCon mentored sprints. In LA, there was an awesome sprint. I heard nothing but positive experiences from it. And I know a few of us from St. Louis were there and had a great experience too. She was highly involved on that. And we're excited to have her here today to talk to us about how to get involved and why you'd want to get involved in the Drupal community.
Okay, are my words okay?
Your words are fine.
Awesome, fantastic. Hello.
Hi.
Don't worry, I won't make you do that thing where I say hello and I make you say it louder and louder. I don't like that. So I'm really excited to be here today. This is my first time in St. Louis, actually. And even though I have taken the Interstate 55 from Chicago to St. Louis many times before, I've always came up short. And that's because I would stop at a town called Staunton in Illinois. Staunton is the home of the Tour de Donut. Has anyone here have heard of Tour de Donut? All right. Tour de Donut is a 32-mile bike race. It has 2 donut stops along the way, and for each donut that you eat, you get 5 minutes taken off your official race time. So this is me 7 years ago, chomping on a donut, one of 2. 2 donuts is my personal best. But I'm not here to talk about donuts. I want to talk about the Drupal community. This is finding the entrance, why and how to get involved in the Drupal community. My slides are available online, and if you're lucky with the Wi-Fi, you can find them at bit.ly/find-entrance. That's bit.ly/find-entrance. And my speaker notes are there too, so you can take a peek at those. So my name is Alina Mackenzie. I am a developer and a system administrator based in Chicago. I am originally from Poland, and even though I've been living in the States for over 20 years, whenever I get excited, my accent still comes through, so don't be surprised when you hear it. I have been doing Drupal for about 4 years now, but I've only been active in the community for only about 2 years. In the Drupal community, you can find me with the username AliMac, and I'm also on my social network of choice, Twitter, with this lovely username. In case you are wondering how to pronounce that, here's the pronunciation guide. It's Czarodziejka. So, where is the Drupal community? I asked myself that question, and one of the first things that came to my mind was, well, why not just look it up on a map somewhere, right? So I found a map. This is a lovely map made by Randall Monroe of XKCD comic blog. And this is a map of online communities. It is slightly out of date because it was made in 2010. So 5 years ago, that's like 5 centuries in internet time, right? But I know for a fact the Drupal community existed back in 2010. And Drupal has been around much longer than that. So I decided to kind of look around this map and see if I could find it. Now I've heard that the Drupal community uses IRC for online chat. So my first guess was, why not cross the sea of protocol confusion and head towards the IRC aisles? But I didn't really have any luck finding it there. And it was a little bit too close to Troll Bay. So I backed out of there pretty quick. I decided to look somewhere else. Maybe Drupal community is somewhere in the Bay of Drama. Or maybe it is somewhere in Buzzword Bay. But neither of those places gave me good leads. So I kind of set adrift in the sea of opinions. It's a big, wide sea of all the opinions. And suddenly, tucked in the corner of the O of opinions, there it was, the Isle of Drupal. I could see that it had landmarks, but not a lot of detail, and that's because this map is static, right? So I figured I needed a little bit different approach in finding the Drupal community. Maybe I thought, if I can see, maybe I can get a better picture of how the community, of what the community looks like and how it works, if I take a look at how the project itself is built. This is the download. This is a screenshot of the download page. How many of you have seen this before? Okay, quite a few people. So this is where you can get Drupal 6, Drupal 7, and Drupal 8 packaged up in lovely tar GZ files and zip files. It's great. Do you ever wonder what goes into those files? Well, I did the work for you. I downloaded Drupal. I unpacked the zip file. I opened it up in a text editor. And what I found there was lots and lots of code. All different kinds of code. PHP code, HTML code, CSS code, and JavaScript code. So I asked myself, okay, how did that code get there? And even more importantly, how do we change that code to make Drupal even better than it is? Well, let's first think about what changes to code are. Usually what we do is we add some code and then also remove some code. And sometimes that adding and removing takes place in close proximity, so it's almost like we're replacing code. And these changes, if you think about them, the adding and the removing, you can group them together in a sort of logical set of changes. And that set of changes is packaged into what's called a patch file. Who wants to see a patch file this early in the morning on a Saturday? We all do, right? This is a patch file. And you can see words there that you can read, right? So this is not a binary file. It's a plain text file. And lines of code that are added are marked with a plus in front of it. And lines of code that are removed are marked with a minus. Great. So how does this patch change Drupal? Well, you apply this patch on top of the existing Drupal code base, and then you transform it. It's kind of like when I go take a selfie of myself, and I look at it and I'm like, I don't like this, so I apply a filter, like the noir filter, and that makes me look 10 times cooler. So these patches are kind of like filters. All right, so where do the patches come from? Well, things in technology usually start in one of two ways. Someone wants something, someone wants a new feature, or someone has a problem with something, and they report a bug. The way we do that in the Drupal community is through creating a new issue on Drupal.org. And the issue might be something like this. I mashed the button, but the button didn't do anything, right? This is not such a great description, but it is a starting point. And maybe, just maybe, after this person posts an issue describing this thing that's happening to them, maybe there's going to be someone else that comes in and says, "Me too." Me Too's are great. I love Me Too's because they validate our pain. Okay, so we've got an original post describing a problem. We've got someone saying Me Too. What's next? Well, the original post serves as an issue summary, and anyone can go in and edit that original issue and add words to it. For example, more useful words that add context, such as steps to reproduce that button mashing problem, and a screenshot of the button that's being mashed and it's not doing anything. Or even better, a screencast that shows what's going on. And once we have all that, finally, maybe someone comes along and writes the first set of changes to Drupal codebase to fix that problem, i.e. write a patch. But maybe that patch is incomplete. Maybe it doesn't work quite right. So another person can come along and build on the work that's being done in that first patch. And this process can go on and get repeated until we have something that works. When we have something that works, we need to review it and make sure that it really does what it's supposed to do. So reviewing is a very important process in making Drupal better. When we review stuff, we ask ourselves, does the patch fix the problem? And we prove it by posting before and after screenshots. This button was mashing and not doing anything, and now it's mashing and there's a dialogue coming up. Hooray. Another thing that we do when we review patches is check for coding standards. Because Drupal has so many developers, thousands and thousands of people that have contributed to Drupal, we all adopt certain conventions that make it easier to work with one another on code. Once the patch is reviewed by someone and they think it looks okay, it does what it's supposed to do, it is set to reach the RTBC status, or reviewed and tested by community. And there is a handful of people that can actually put code into Drupal, and those are code committers. They look at issues that have reached that status, and they check to make sure that everything is okay there. And if everything is okay, they will put those changes into Drupal. When they do that, there's a little message that they craft up referencing the issue in which the patches were being worked on, and also giving credit to everyone that worked on it. And it's not just the person who posted the code. It's going to be the person who created the issue. It's going to be the person who added the screenshots, the people who provided patches, and all the people who reviewed the issue. And now I have a little video of what that looks like that I want to share with you. This is from last year from DrupalCamp New York.
Oh, are you going? Okay. Hello again. All right, here we are at Nice Camp, and Pauline Ross has just uploaded her first patch, which was then reviewed by Tobias Duckler, who then found a couple of problems with it and forced a reroll of the patch, which is here. This has both been RTBC'd by Tobias and double confirmed by CT Cathy. The bug was originally reported by Alina, Mac, and I, WebChick, am now about to commit it. Woo-hoo! Woo! All right, so I'm clicking on the patch. I copy it into my browser. Can I do it? Well, I'm going to do it this way, and then I'll turn it. Oh, yeah, there we go, yeah. So this is what I do, because I go to the issue, and I look at the table here, because the newest patch is always at the top of the table, which I like. I click that.
We unchecked the first patch so it wouldn't confuse you.
I saw that,
Yeah.
and that was very nice, because I'm very easily confused. What I should do is I click review and look at it in your editor, because it's all pretty and stuff. So what we're doing is we're removing some inaccurate documentation from the interface itself, and we're moving it down to the place where the sort actually happens, which makes a lot more sense. And as an added bonus, instead of a really confusing way to write this, which is ordered by weight ascending and then name ascending, we just say order by weight and then title, which sounds great to me. So passes my my hammer of judgment or whatever.
Your smell test?
My smell test? Thanks, that's much better. I'm in my command line now, so I'm going to git reset to make sure I don't have any funny stuff happening locally. And then I'm going to git pull rebase, because I get yelled at when I don't put rebase in there. I don't know
get
why,
yelled at?
but I know I get yelled at, so there we go. I'm going to wget it, which basically is from the command line downloading the file remotely. And the file is called Owanka in honor of Holly's husband. Git apply index owanka.patch, and then I can see what that did by doing git diff 8.x, and it'll show me, and what I should see here is the same thing I saw on the patch itself. This will help me to know that I didn't have anything funny. Like sometimes I'm like trying to debug something and I put the word bananas in the middle of a source file, and then that ends up in Drupal, and that's no good. So that looks great. So what I'm going to do now is flip back to the issue. I'll use Dredditor to craft a commit message here, which says Holly Ross and Ali Mac, but I also want to credit CT, and I also want to credit Tobias, whose name I cannot spell, so I'm going to just copy and paste it. There we go, and now we have a proper commit, and I'm going to copy it, I'm going to paste it, I'm going to git commit, not git vomit, that's a different thing. And then do that, and then one more thing, git push, and boom! Yes.
Awesome! Thanks for having an issue.
All right. So I think Angie is great to do live commits because she explains everything very well, and she has got a really great sense of humor. But what we saw there is that creating an issue, adding information to it, posting patches, and reviewing them were all valuable contributions. And then there was one invisible element there. All these people were gathered together in one place. That means that someone had to organize the event that they were at. So organizing events is also an important contribution. So let's bring the focus to the people that make the Drupal community. And in preparation for this talk, I asked a few people about what they do in the community, why they do what they do, and how they got started doing what they do. I want to start us off by talking about Eric, because this camp is dedicated in his memory. Now, I have not met Eric online or in person, but by being here, by meeting the St. Louis Drupal community, I'm really grateful to experience and appreciate the legacy that Eric has built here. And I think it's captured quite well in this quote from Cecily Borzillo, in which she says that Eric was the cornerstone of the St. Louis user group. He was always the first to offer help to anyone that needed it, and believed strongly in making Drupal accessible to anyone that had interest. Now, the person who invited me here is Jeff, and he's been with the St. Louis Drupal meetup group for over 7 years. He is the maintainer of the Honeypot module and one of the maintainers of the Drupal.org packaging whitelist. When it comes to local events and large DrupalCons, Jeff prefers the local, smaller events because he gets to meet and speak with many more people, and the sprints are a lot more focused and less overwhelming. Jeff contributes to the Drupal community by reviewing patches, by submitting patches, and feedback for core and contributed projects. Another person in the St. Louis Drupal community is Frederick, who unfortunately could not be here today. When I asked Frederick how he is involved, he told me that he's involved through mentorship, through staying positive, and through promoting others doing great work. Frederick first got involved in Drupal through our work at his company, and now he volunteers, speaks at events, promotes Drupal in all his ventures, including his own startup. In the Chicago area, we have Cathy. Cathy works on Drupal core and mentors new contributors. Cathy's passion is improving the contribution process for both new and ongoing contributors. Cathy learned about the Drupal community from a podcast before attending DrupalCon Denver. She heard on this podcast that it is valuable to stay extra days before and after the con to attend sprints. And so she adjusted her travel plans and has been attending sprints and events ever since. Thanks. Kevin, we're really lucky to have Kevin here today, who almost didn't make it due to a train mishap yesterday. Kevin is a meetup organizer, meetup and camp organizer, and also provides printing support for the Drupal core mentoring group. For Kevin, there have been many firsts when it comes to getting involved with the Drupal community, like working in the issue queue, attending meetups and camps. Kevin's passion is creating an affordable session recording kit, which is this set of electronics right here. And he's going to help record all the talks today so that folks who couldn't make it can view them later. Kevin also shares his non-Drupal expertise when it comes to organizing events. Recently at MidCamp in Chicago, he discovered that he has a superpower, which is being able to figure out and estimate correctly the catering that's needed for the event. That's quite a superpower. Let's kind of zoom out into the rest of the US and the world. We have in the Northeast, Kalpana. And when I asked Kalpana how she got involved in the Drupal community, she told me that she tried different areas in the span of about 3 years until she was able to find that right spot at which to join. And that right spot for her was Drupal 8 and Symfony. Symfony is a PHP framework, which is now part of Drupal 8. And once Kalpana got started learning about Drupal 8 and Symfony, she started contributing to core quite a lot. Right now, she contributes patches, reviews, and mentors new contributors. She told me that as a benefit, she gained a lot of confidence and also increased her social circle, which is great. Karen is a co-organizer of the Drupal Lima meetup, where she shares her knowledge through workshops and talks. She was introduced to Drupal and open source by a friend, and she was inspired by the ability that she could build a sustainable career path using those tools. Karen's goal is to increase women's participation in the tech community. For Karen, visibility converts into reputation, in the Drupal community, which then gives you opportunities to grow both career-wise and as a person. So let's look back to that Drupal Island one more time. If we take a look at it now, we see that there's a lot more movement, right? You see little dashes which represent C routes. And the Drupal community is not isolated. It's not all on its own. It's part of many intersecting communities. Communities built around technologies like PHP, but also communities that are gathered around topics like user experience and automation and accessibility and multilingual and lots of different topics. So let's take a look at the many ways that you can get involved. Now, there are many ways, and I've isolated them down to just 19. These 19 ways to enter the Drupal community are not in any particular order. They're not ordered from easiest to hardest or hardest to easiest. And remember, you might already be doing some of this stuff. So, do you like figuring things out? Do you like working on solutions that have constraints? If that's the case, you can provide support online, in forums, in chat, in person, at your workplace, at meetups, and at user groups. Providing support makes you smarter. Like, there's got to be a study on that. And also trains your empathy, which is a key value for contributors in open source. Do you like to break things? Do you like to point out broken things? In that case, usability testing is for you. Because usability testing is all about finding and documenting bugs. And you don't even have to fix them. Someone else can do that. And then, when they say they fixed it, you can test it and review it and actually make sure that it works. I like to say that documentation is worth its weight in code because I like making bad puns. But really, documentation is all about adding and removing words. Just like code, we add and remove words in order to make things clearer and easier to understand. And documentation is a great entry point into the Drupal community and into learning about how Drupal works. Does anybody here know any language other than English? Did you know that there's over 100 translations of Drupal, but only 3 of them are 100% completed? So there's still a lot of work to be done in that area. And I'm secretly hoping that someone is going to translate Drupal into Klingon. All right. Remember all the contributions that we talked about being made on issues? Well, whether you like the front end or the back end, you can review code, write code, and always document your code because documentation, lack of documentation is a bug. So contribute to Drupal core. You can also introduce people to Drupal, people that haven't heard of it. If Drupal fixed a problem that you've had, tell someone about how Drupal helped address your needs. And also, when there are events happening, you can always boost a signal on the social networks that you're on. In the Drupal community, we have interest areas that have strategic importance for the Drupal project. And those include things like configuration management, design, mobile, multilingual, and web services. If you're interested in any of these core initiatives, you can go online and find out who is the coordinator for that initiative and get involved. All right, this one, you can cross it off your list because you're here and you're awesome. And even if you can't attend events in person, there are usually recorded talks and you can watch them. Please always give feedback to the presenters. We really like to know what we did well and what we can improve upon. So tell them, I really liked how you explained this one issue, and I really wish that your slides could have used more pictures of kittens on them. Like, I really hope that's the kind of feedback I get because there's a serious lack of kittens on my slides. A great way to learn about a topic is to give a talk. I once gave a talk about, a 20-minute talk about Vagrant, but I spent hours and hours preparing for it and going into like the nuts and bolts of Vagrant, and it was quite fun. If you're thinking right now that I'm just a beginner, I don't know anything, I want to tell you that as a beginner at something, you are an expert at being a beginner at something. And that is valuable to the people who are not yet beginners at something. Putting on events like this Drupal camp is a tough but rewarding task. All kinds of skill sets are needed to organize events, all kinds of superpowers. Like, do you have the superpower to estimate catering needs? We need you at mid-camp. But if you have spare time, you can help organize Drupal Camp St. Louis next year. Maybe there aren't any Drupal user groups in your area. You can start your own. It can be hyper-local, like at your workplace or school. Just remember to set up a regular time and place where people can come. Similar to giving talks is writing a blog post, but the audience is not looking right at you, so it's a little bit less pressure. If you've ever had a frustrating experience and solved it in some way, describe it, write about it. Blog posts are kind of like your personal documentation, and you never know when you're going to need to refer it to in the future. Somewhere between giving a talk and writing a blog post is making a podcast. And there are several Drupal-related podcasts that you can listen to while you are driving or on a train. Long train ride. But there's always room to make your own. So if that's your thing, if you like to do things out loud, make a podcast. Maybe you have some custom code that you've written that uses Drupal. Contributed projects are kind of like mini Drupal projects, and they're super important in sustaining the core project. So consider releasing your custom code to the community and get others to work on it and find bugs for you and make improvements. Drupal is free to use. It is open source. But working on open source is not free. It costs time. That's time not spent with family or working to support oneself. So we have a DrupalAccelerate Fund, which supports work being done on Drupal 8. And its aim is to bring people together for critical sprints on important topics to get Drupal 8 released. So you can consider donating. The Drupal Association provides community grants, and it organizes DrupalCons. There's DrupalCons in Europe, in North America, in South America, and coming soon in 2016 in Asia. Membership in the Drupal Association starts at $15. Meetups, camps, sprints, they all need sponsors. And it doesn't always have to be about money. Maybe you have available event space that you can offer. Or maybe you can provide snacks like coffee or tea or lunch. The benefit of sponsoring an event is that you get to meet current and future developers, contributors, project managers, generalists, and all kinds of learners. Mentoring in the Drupal community takes place in two different ways. It takes place online and in person. Online mentoring happens every week on IRC chat on Wednesdays, and in-person mentoring can happen at all kinds of events, the big ones, the small ones, and even meetups. And now, for this last way of getting involved, I have a little story from DrupalCon Los Angeles. I was in a large room, sitting. It was a sprint space. It was, imagine lots and lots of round tables and folks just sitting at their laptops. I was working on my talk and focusing on my slides when a number of people started coming in and saying hi and sitting down and chatting. And one of the people that came into the room was Kalpana, who I mentioned earlier. And she looked around and saw that there was a person sitting by themselves at a table. So she walked up to this person and asked them if they wanted to join our table. And so this person came over, Kalpana introduced her, and we introduced ourselves. Soon after that, I went back to working on my talk. But I was impressed by the way that Kalpana welcomed this person into the community and didn't just kind of ignore them. One of the most powerful things that we can do is give encouragement to another person and invite them to do something together. So I shared everybody else's stories. I think it's only fair that I share my own. My first DrupalCon was DrupalCon Denver. After that, I attended Global Sprint Weekend in 2013, DrupalCon Portland. But all throughout, I felt overwhelmed by the idea of being involved and contributing. I felt this inadequacy about making a meaningful contribution. Part of it might be because I had the wrong idea about what a meaningful contribution might be. Well, when it came time for Global Sprint Weekend 2014, I felt anxious. I felt that I'm going to waste other people's time and I'm not going to get anything done and it's just not going to be a good experience. But I still went. And when I came in, Cathy, who was the organizer for Global Sprint Weekend in 2014, she asked me about my goals. She asked me, what do you want to learn? And I was like, what? And so I thought about it and I asked, well, I would like to really learn how to set up my local development environment in such a way that I can repeatedly just hit reset and be able and ready to start work whenever I go to a Drupal event without fiddling things and clearing things out and deleting databases. And she said, okay. And she gave me a bunch of resources to look at. And so I did. I spent that whole Global Sprint Weekend working on perfecting my local environment. And then I wrote a blog post about it. But what was really, really powerful was that I had the autonomy in defining my own objective. And it gave me the confidence to do other things in the community, such as being involved in Drupal mentoring group, helping organize camps and sprints, and talking at events. The key benefit that I think I've gotten from the Drupal community is that I learned to ask questions. This might sound a little silly, but I used to think that asking questions made me seem like I didn't know what I was talking about. Like it made me seem stupid. But then, when I was at Drupal camps and events and sprints, I saw that people are asking questions to each other all the time. And it's not just new contributors asking questions. Experienced contributors also ask questions. And they get answers from other people. And I thought, okay, all right, I'll do the same. So I applied that lesson and started asking questions in my professional life. And the funny thing that happened is that people told me that I was smart for asking questions because it showed that I was paying attention, which really surprised me. What sustains me about being in the community is being around accessibly smart and kind people. And I'm also impressed that the community always strives to improve itself. I would like to leave us with a quote that was the inspiration for this talk. It's by a Swedish pop artist named Robin. And Robin was talking about being on the stage and theater, but I think this is applicable to the Drupal community as well. What Robin said was that when you develop an interest, it usually comes from an environment that de-dramatizes things, because then you're able to find your own entrance into it. I hope everyone is able to find their entrance into the Drupal community, however it is that you do it. And one way you can do it is through coming to sprints tomorrow. People of all skills are welcome. If you are on the fence right now whether you should come, I want you to write down like top 3 things about Drupal or related technologies that you are interested, like right now. And if you don't have a piece of paper or a computer, just close your eyes and like write it on the inside of your eyelid. Okay? Now pick one thing on that list and maybe break it down into smaller parts if needed. And then come to the sprint tomorrow and learn it and ask lots of questions. Thank you very much. You've been a great audience. No one has thrown a rotten vegetable at me, so thank you.